is the Idavox Report.
Most of the people in the country that got familiar with what a skinhead was thought they were all Nazis. And here we are, we're like, we're not Nazis. We were anti-racist. And when the Nazis came, we all looked at each other, we're like, no, we're not gonna stand for this.
Oh, the good old days. How y'all doing, ladies and gentlemen? This is Daryle Lamont Jenkins. I'm here with Christian Perez. Brian is floating around somewhere. Unfortunately, he's having a few problems with his internet connection, but you can talk, right, Brian?
How am I coming through over there?
All right, cool. Yeah, you're coming out pretty good, actually.
There you go. I'm doing some backup. I always got a backup plan, you know.
What's doing, Christian?
Doing okay. Looking forward to tonight's interview. Really enjoyed that documentary and having an okay week, man. Just getting by. Just got off a cold.
Cool. Oh man. Yeah. Let's not start to change the season codes. I think I got a little scratchy throat. I was in Providence a while about last weekend, and I started getting that scratchy throat, and I was just like, no, don't want it. But in any case, like you said, this is going to be a good interview. This is going to be a good discussion, shall I say? It's more than an interview. It's about the documentary that you just mentioned, the Baldies. That's what that's how we led off the show with the trailer for that. You can find it on the PBS website. You can probably find it on PBS proper. And as I said in our commercial for tonight's show, it's really about the beginnings of the modern day anti-fascist movement. I mean, that's the best way to put it, because it was from the Baldies really that you start seeing the beginnings of the how should I say, the beginnings of what we tend to know as Antifa, really. And we have someone that's on the show today. In the studio with us today is my brother Tom. Not my brother in real life, but my brother Tom.
Howdy.
And he's been in this game pretty much as long as I have, but he was in the streets longer than I have been. And it's funny because I'm born and raised a nerd, so these kinds of things kind of like went past me until about 1990 when I jumped headfirst into the punk scene and everything that came with it, ska, the skinhead scene and all that. And but Tom has been in it since even, I would say probably even just maybe a couple of years before I jumped in, because I came in 90. When did you come in, Tom?
1988, 89.
Wow.
All right. Because I had just gotten kicked out of the Air Force by that point. But anyway, Tom has a long history in the anti-fascist scene, particularly in Portland. He's seen all the wars out there, and he's a part of this documentary. He is in this documentary talking about his history. Now, I'm going to let Tom tell the stories, but I just want to point out that the Baldies were based in Minneapolis. He wasn't there in the beginnings, but that's cool. He was there, period. So there's some stories to talk about. So first of all, welcome, Tom.
Thanks.
And I just want to let everybody know. I mean, I also don't want to keep this going because Lord knows you're probably going to have to bounce out of here at any minute. So I'm sorry for holding you up, but or delaying this. But I definitely just want to get you going and just basically asking you first and foremost, what do you want people to get out of this documentary? If there's anything I want to hear right now, I just definitely want to know what you want out of this.
I mean, I don't know really what I want out of it. I mean, I went down to our reunion and they're doing a documentary, and I thought it was really cool to get, the Baldies story out, and, I think, a little bit about the ARA when that got started by the Baldies. Some of the takeaway is just like listen to some of the stories from the past, I guess, and apply it to the future.
Yeah, and by the way, ARA stands for Anti-Racist Action. They were the crew that the Baldies created. And before we get into that, basically, Tom, I asked you when you came in, how did you come in? What got you all into this in the first place?
Well, I was like a punk skater kid in Portland, going to shows. We had neo-Nazis growing off trees out here. And then Mulgeta Sarah got killed by Eastside White Pride, Kyle Brewster, Ken Miesky, and Steve Strasser. And that changed a lot of the dynamic in Portland, and we started pushing back at shows. Punk rockers did. Sharp started forming up, and I was in the first iteration of Sharp in Portland.
Skinheads Against Racial Prejudice.
And we were working with groups like Coalition for Human Dignity and, ARA. There was an ARA chapter here that we worked with, and we just started, fighting the Nazis everywhere we could find them. And, I'd go out, look for them, and take the fight to them a lot, besides just catching them at shows. And then later, I want to say 92, one of the Minneapolis Baldies had moved up to Portland. We had first met them during the Tom Metzger trials, which would have been 1990, when the first entourage of Baldies from Minneapolis showed up in Portland. And by 92, we had the first and only Baldies chapter outside of Minneapolis. And me and several other people that were part of that first iteration of Sharp started that, and we ran that for a while. And so that's kind of how I started, kind of up through Sharp, and then met the Baldies, and then we ended up having a chapter here.
Excellent. Now, we talked about, you mentioned Mulgeta Sarah and Tom Metzger. For those who don't know, Mulgeta Sarah was an Ethiopian student that was here in America that was attacked and killed, actually, by what Tom mentioned, Eastside White Pride. Was it Miesky? What's his name? That actually killed him?
Ken Miesky. They used to refer to him as Ken Death. And Kyle Brewster and Steve Strasser were the other two that were convicted in that murder.
Okay, and so what happened, and this is something that people might remember, after this, because Eastside White Pride was connected to an organization called White Aryan Resistance, which was run by Tom Metzger, the SPLC, on the behalf of the Mulgeta Sarah's family, sued White Aryan Resistance. Tom Metzger and his son John had to come up to Portland to face civil trial, and they lost a $12.5 million judgment. And it broke them. It broke the Metzgers. They were not the same again. White Aryan Resistance was basically a shell of what it was, and it was a strong force. It was a strong force if it was if they was able to have chapters in Portland, and they're out of Fallbrook, California. So
right.
But it wasn't, but it was what was, would you say, you said it basically that the death of Mulgeta Sarah was the catalyst that built the anti-fascist movement. Would that be appropriate?
Yeah, I would say that was the catalyst that started the mobilizations, absolutely, in Portland. Prior to
Christian,
that there weren't any real mobilizations that I'm aware of.
Yeah. So, Tom, I wanted to ask, in the documentary we see in Minneapolis, there's almost this pearl clutching reaction to the Baldies early on. By the time, they get to Portland and you're a member of the organization, what was the local reaction in media and local government to the Baldies, especially, as you said, with Nazis growing on trees out there?
Well, I can tell you what the police response was to Baldies and Sharp and any anti-racist skinheads here, that we were a gang that were just as violent and the Nazis, therefore just as bad.
Were the cops?
The public, fairly liberal place, like, a lot of people didn't like the violence. I think people were a little bit sick of the, in the media at least, of that, but who cares, I guess. And then there were other people that thought we were great. It was a mixed bag here.
What was it like working with PBS? I mean, because it seems to, like, in many ways, I don't want to say come full circle, but we see almost a 180 where institutionally you're seen as a threat. They try to put you on equal footing with white supremacists, but here you are being featured now on PBS. What's that like?
Well, that I know of, that I don't know that any of us directed with PBS directly. There was the person filming the documentary, David Roth, is who did that, and it definitely released through PBS. And he was at our 35-year reunion in Minneapolis and was filming and interviewing us during that. And that's really the guy that we dealt with in his team. And I don't know if they were at the time part of PBS or who was part of PBS. I remember meeting David Roth and the camera crew, and they asked to talk to me, and they were great. I felt like, I know David Roth had who made the documentary had a really good understanding of who we were. And I thought they were real easy to deal with. It just seemed like dealing with normal people, not like normal media experiences.
Okay. In this, like, post George Floyd murder era, do you feel like attitudes have changed regarding Baldies and skinheads against racial prejudice and your whole movement out there? Have attitudes changed, or have they generally stayed the same?
I don't know. I mean, here, like the anti-racist skinheads, we're not really blowing up in the press so much. The whole focus is in the press is on Antifa and Proud Boys versus Antifa and Patriot Prayer versus Antifa. And so that's all you really hear about. Like, I haven't really heard, like, anti-racist skins mentioned much in the last 4 years in the media.
Yeah, I haven't heard anybody talking about anti-racist skins, trash skins, red skins. I mean, I haven't heard anything about skinhead culture in the past, I don't know, maybe 10 years alone, maybe even 20. It's kind of like, at least on here on the East Coast. I go out west, however, you got red and anarchist skinheads, Rash, out in LA. You find them in Montreal.
Yeah, they're in Portland as well.
Yeah, so it's so you still see the culture out there, and it's being represented by a lot of Hispanic and black skins. So and that's something. It's funny too, because I mentioned Montreal, and the culture, as always, includes had a lot of music in it in Montreal. They had their clubs, they had their bands, and so did y'all. I remember there was a band back in the day. Not even that far back in the day, maybe 2006 or so, maybe even earlier, something called The Escape. And I was all into them. And it's unfortunate because they're not around anymore. But I wonder, because we really got into one of the things that was really important about this documentary is that you saw a lot of music coming out of this documentary alone. Now, granted, they were talking about some of the Minneapolis bands. What was that culture like? What was that scene like in Portland? What would you say?
The music scene? Is that what the question is?
I might have just thrown something at you that you weren't prepared for, but
we had a pretty vibrant music scene here. Lots of local bands and lots of you know, bigger bands would come through here. I mean, that's where a lot of the big fights happened, was, you know, punk rock shows. You know, we didn't run into a lot of problems at like ska and reggae shows because the Nazis weren't showing up to that. But go to a DRI show in the 80s and you knew you were fighting them. You know, any of the punk shows or hardcore shows, they would be there. And we usually, you know, you just run in and that's the first order of business, right? Run the Nazis out. And then whichever one of us didn't get kicked out during that fight, we got to watch the show. But I mean, Portland's always had a really vibrant music scene, but I think every city does. I mean, you know, back then you could go to Berkeley, you could go to Lawrence, Kansas, even Sacramento, really, at the Cattle Club. You know, all these scenes where things were happening had real vibrant music scenes and subcultures.
Yeah, I think one of the reasons why I brought it up is because I love coming out to Portland. I've been there 3 times now, and every time I come there, it seems like that has been a part of what everybody has been. It's basically there's a soundtrack to what everybody's doing out there, and I did not. We've been talking about on this show. We somehow go into a conversation about music all the time. And I wanted to just make sure that got in there. And that brings me to another question, though. The wars that you had, the war with there was 2, I guess, 2 eras. Your era from back in the 80s and 90s and today's era.
Right.
Meeski is still is hooking up with the Proud Boys in that crowd and all, but
no, that's Brewster. Meeski died.
I'm sorry,
in jail,
Kyle
Brewster.
Brewster.
Yeah,
Brewster. Yeah, Meeski's still in.
He's been running with the Proud Boys.
Yeah, Kyle Brewster has been running. And by the way, Kyle Brewster actually he didn't testify against Metzger and them, but he was a witness during that civil trial. I think am I right?
They brought him in. I don't know if it was in favor or against. I can't remember. I was like 18 at that trial. But Dave Mazzella, who was a recruiter for Tom Metzger, was the main witness against Tom Metzger.
Now, Dave Mazzella was on that Oprah Winfrey show that actually got me started into chasing after Nazis. And he's no longer a part of all of this. He's since apologized on Oprah's show. It's like 20 some odd years later, 30 years later. And he has gone around actually to, I guess, warn people against being a part of this scene. I don't know where he is now. But yeah, that's what he's about. I would say I was going to ask in particular, is there anything that we can get from the scene in Portland that from your era, from this era, now and not just in regards to other Portlanders? I'm just talking about across the country, maybe even around the globe. What is it that you learned from your experiences dealing with the fash in the streets that people can take away from today?
Well, I mean, they're different. I mean, for one, they're slightly different animals because, like, modern is, you know, the fascists are doing these huge public demonstrations versus, you know, we were kind of in the back alleys and it shows. You know, the biggest thing is just be smart. You know, like the one thing I learned, and I think why a lot of us stayed alive, is, you know, surround yourself with people you trust and can count on, and be smart. Be aware of your surroundings, and diversify the tactics. It's not always just smashing the dude's head in. There's a million different ways to be effective. One thing, you know, in this day and age that is effective that we didn't employ back then was like the doxing and stuff. I mean, the groups we worked with, like ARA and CHD, would do like flyers, because we didn't have the internet, that would essentially dox, and we'd run around and put those up. But it's a lot different, you know, and like they're trying to mainstream it now, where versus back then it was like, you know, some 200-pound tattooed dude with a knife wanting to get down, and typically they wouldn't run. Whereas the Proud Boys, they kind of rely on the numbers because those guys aren't going to stand toe to toe with anybody.
Right.
For the most part.
No.
They might
And
have
it's I'm gonna let Brian. I don't know if Brian wanted to come in on something, but I did want to ask you, how has the documentary been received? It came out last Monday, I think the 18th, and I've heard a lot of good things about it. I mean, me and a friend of mine watched it in Providence. I believe one of the Nazis that I had helped get out of the scene, his tattoos were seen just real briefly. So, you know, we was getting a kick out of just seeing all the stuff in there. But what has been the reception to the documentary from your perspective?
The reception that I've heard has been, you know, it's been really well. I've heard about at least one school somewhere that had showed it in one of their classes. You know, anything I've seen online has been really, I haven't seen that. The only complaint that I've heard is, damn, that could have been 2 hours longer.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it could have been. It could have been.
Oh, I mean, it could have been 6 hours longer. It could have been.
Could have been a miniseries.
Yeah, that's
and
what
don't be surprised if somebody thinks that. Don't be surprised if somebody thinks that.
It could be several movies. Yeah.
Baldies, Age of Ultron. So, I mean, Brian, did you have anything?
Yeah, I guess. Well, I have a good internet connection. I had like kind of two questions. I want to throw them right at you and let you answer. One, I guess I'd like to know who your musical hero was and who inspired you most musically. If you could pick a favorite artist, I'd like to know who that is. And two, I'd like to hear who's inspired you as far as activist and organizing wise. Do you have either a mentor or somebody that helps you, develop the politics or the skills needed to deal with racists and to deal with them effectively?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say back there, like a lot of them were influential. One of the bands that really stands out is The Oppressed, who's Roddy Moreno, and he's the guy that came and did a show in the United States back in the 80s, and took Sharp back across to England. All of his music has always been like anti-racist, and he's been around a long time. And when I was a kid, I was really into The Oppressed. Man, I loved them. Second to that would probably be Cockspar, just because I really love that band. As far as activists, I would say there's a lot of people that have helped me develop throughout the years, but the guy that would stand out the most is also in the documentary. That'd be Mike Crenshaw, who, through our talks, I became, when I got into this as a single issue kid, anti-racist, smash Nazis, and Mike really opened me up to all these other things. So I would say that would be an activist that I looked up to and still do.
Can you say what else drew you to the movement, or maybe go in a little bit depth with that? Because I mean, you're a young guy, you're a young kid in the 80s, you're a young white kid going to shows. You could have just said, you know what? You could have thrown your hands up and just said, I don't want to have anything to do with this. You could have gone to shows, you could have kept on skating. Was there a particular moment that made you say, I want to join this movement, I want to be a part of this, I want to be proactive?
I mean, to me, it was a no-brainer to go after the Nazis. I grew up in Hillsboro, Oregon, which was very split between white and Latinx people. I grew up around that, so I don't know. Like, to me, it just made sense. My grandfather, like when I was a kid, he fought in World War II. He was in the Battle of the Bulge, 10th Armored Division. I thought that was really cool. For me, it just made sense. And we're going to these shows, and they're there, and fuck them. It just seemed like, why wouldn't you?
Yeah.
I don't know. It wasn't like something that what drew me specifically to the skinhead scene versus other things was, the brotherhood and the family that you get from that, for sure. And, and being a part of something cool, like took me into to the skinheads specifically. But as far as like fighting Nazis, it just like I can't imagine why anybody wouldn't, if they're killing people on your streets and they're in your scene, why you wouldn't morally stand up and do that.
Did you have a lot of friends of color, Black and Latinx friends?
Yes.
Yeah.
And ironically, I was a skateboarder, and literally half the white kids that I skateboarded with, a couple of years later, they started popping up on the completely other side, on the Nazi side. And I thought that was ironic, because they grew up in the same neighborhoods as me and had the same friends, but they ended up over there. And I was always like, wow, that's wild.
Yeah. Yeah,
That's
I can't imagine. That's unfortunate.
Yeah. It's interesting too, because we didn't even mention the crews that you had to deal with in Portland. You basically, the crew that I'm familiar with that comes besides Eastside White Pride, that we might know is Volksfront. And they started, I believe, as a prison gang in '94. What kind of climate were they creating in Portland? Because they was a really strong crew at one time. And it seemed like, go on.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I mean, at their time, they were at one point the largest neo-Nazi bonehead gang in the country and maybe the world. And they were based out of Portland. It was Randy Krager, who I believe he was part of the early iterations of American Front, because we had American Front here because Bob Hike had moved to Portland and was running American Front out of Portland. And then, so AF was like the big guys back in the day, and some war guys, and every once in a while Hammerskins come through. Then later Volksfront was just kind of everything. And they were active. They still ran out of shows here. They had to do it in secret. They tried to, host white power shows, and we'd find them, we'd shut them down. And eventually they left due to, the continuous doxing. Randy Krager couldn't get a job or keep an apartment, because he'd get doxed so much by, the local Antifa group here at the time. And, they were really, that's when we started seeing the drop of the boneheads, was after Volksfront fell apart. There was definitely a decline in that. They were still around, but they never really seemed to get super organized after that. And then, it was real quiet for the most part. Occasionally some guys come to a show and blow his cover and he gets smashed up. And then we're into the Trump era and the Proud Boys.
You see, that's the crazy thing too. So Volksfront more or less ended, I would say 2014. I would say it'd be about that.
Maybe right.
And then along comes 2015 when Trump decides to get his shit on, and it starts all over again.
No, it's like they might have been more like 2007, 2009 when Volksfront fell apart, because they were long gone before Trump came into running for president or anything. So I'd say mid 2000s.
So I said, because what I remember, I remember around the time that the shooting happened at in Wisconsin. I always do this. I always forget where this place was. I think it was Oak Creek, Wisconsin. And
Kenosha?
Huh?
Which one? Kenosha?
No. This was this was just a couple of years ago. This was a Hammerskin that went in and shot up a Sikh temple in Wisconsin.
Yeah, okay.
And Volksfront and Hammerskins were like at each other's throats. So I thought it was weird when the media tried to implicate Volksfront to the shooting because the girlfriend of the shooter had a Volksfront shirt on. And I thought that was weird, and I had to actually write a story to basically say she was never down with the Hammerskins, and she was down with I'm sorry, she was never down with Volksfront. She was down with the Hammerskins. So the shirt was just like, a fluke, to be honest. So, but Volksfront almost got in the news because of that incident, because of that situation.
Right.
Yeah,
and I know a lot of their guys are still around. Like that guy Red, he's like down in California, and I think he's involved with Hammerskins or stuff like that. But he was like one of Randy's like right hand guys when Volksfront was running, and I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure he's kind of somewhat Hammerskin related now. Last time I looked him up.
Yeah. Randy, I don't think is involved with anything anymore. He's just raising his family out in the Midwest somewhere.
As far as I know.
Yeah. So, and what about you? Where are you in this game now?
I go, I'm creeping 50, I go out to the rallies. I go to shows. If I got to defend people, I'm gonna, but I'm not really, at my age and being a grandfather and I got kids, I'm not going out too much, looking for stuff like I did when I was a kid. But if I'm at a rally and the fascist attack, then they're going to get a little bit of me on them. And, same thing at a show. I'm still going to run Nazis out. So I just don't go out looking for it anymore.
Yeah. I mean, I dig that. And I saw that. I mean, you're basically really low key whenever I'm coming out there. And that's cool. And that's cool because, I think we're at the age of elder statesmen in this whole game. And we are more teachers in this day and age. That's what I've been picking up on, is because I know a lot of people who hear about me, they look to me and ask me questions about how things could be done. And honestly, I think a lot of today's Antifa have it on the ball, but there's times when they just have questions. Yeah, so I just like I'm like there too. And I think you get that a lot from a lot of the younger folks. That's my vibe. That's my vibe.
Yeah, I have a lot of interaction. I talk to everybody. I'm out there. I go to the rallies. I've been to a lot of the rallies. I like to research people when I see somebody that catches my eye, and send it down the line if I find something. That's a better way for me to kick, where I got kids depending on me to provide them shelter and stuff, raise my children. So that's still a good way to do stuff, do research or verify who people are.
How has Trump and the post-Trump era affected Portland? Would you say that white supremacy grew significantly in this era, more emboldened? Like what has the effect been since about 2015, 2016 in the Portland area?
I would say it was emboldened. And it definitely grew some, I think, but also I think that like there was always such a racist element to Portland and Oregon in general, that they just felt that they could come out and be seen on a broader, people aren't exposing how racist they really are overtly. And then when Trump came along, they could, and they did. And I do think it grew some because, they were recruiting and reaching out to people, and they were getting people that, may or may not have went that way. I don't know, but it definitely grew, and they definitely felt emboldened, whether it be racist or transphobes or just like everything was out in the open. The Trump guys thought that they could just come out and say whatever they want to say and act however they wanted to act because, they got a fascist president.
Yeah, but it's also more like they thought they can do whatever they wanted to do. Because last year, Donald Trump thought that it was a good idea to just essentially attack Portland. And
Oh yeah,
they may have been right in that assumption.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, the Portland police have a long history of defending the fascists, and they definitely did that for all the right-wing mobilizations in Portland. They always attacked the anti-fascists, they never went after the fascists hardly at all. They've even, like, they're on record saying, telling like Tiny from Patriot Prayer, hey, we know you guys got warrants and stuff, but if you leave, we're just not going to arrest you guys. Meanwhile, they're over there beating, somebody on the anti-fascist side because they didn't move off the sidewalk fast enough. But Portland police were like that when we were coming up. They have, they would come after the anti-racist skins and the anti-fascists. When, an anti-racist skinhead was shot here back in like 2007, they didn't investigate at all to find out who shot him. They started investigating who his friends were. Then, they did security for Tom Metzger and beamed about it. They had Mark Kruger, who was a Nazi cop and never really lost his job. A well-known anti-fascist here, Sean Kelleher, was murdered, and literally the police have a car full of fingerprints and DNA, and they have yet to make an arrest because they aren't going to arrest somebody that murdered an anti-fascist because the cops have always been on their side.
Yes, and Sean was killed just 2 years ago this month, incidentally, right?
This is correct. Yes. And there's a podcast going on about it now, and a few things about Sean Kelleher and how the police have just not touched it. They started investigating who he was with, and who his friends were, not who did it.
I mean, it's rotten.
So, I mean, I kind of would like you to just go back for a moment, Tom. So, I mean, we're going back to the 1990s. Has it always been this relationship with the police? Have they at any point ever come out and supported you? I mean, I feel like I already know the answer, but I feel like I also just need to know to confirm it. I literally had this conversation with my students today about how if there's a strike, the police always show up on the side on the side of business, never on the side of labor. There always seem to be videos of them fist bumping white supremacists and also knocking out old people who don't get off the sidewalk fast enough. But has there been any change dealing with whether individual police or police leadership? Has it always been like confrontational? Have they always been confrontational with you?
Oh yeah. As far back as I can remember, back to, when I was a teenager. I was like 17 and, I wish I could remember that cop's name now, started with an M. Picked me up for jaywalking, took me into a holding cell that was before booking at the Justice Center, left me in there handcuffed, came in, beat the shit out of me while I was handcuffed, then took me back out in the car, cut me loose on the streets. There's no record of me ever being in that jail, but I can tell you that I got my ass beat while handcuffed in that holding cell.
And you were 17 years old. You were crossing the street.
Yeah. Yeah, they always arrested us or cited us for jaywalking constantly. I get 5 jaywalking tickets in a day in downtown Portland. So the relationship with the police has always been contentious.
And you know what was weird about that? I remember watching, and I actually still have this on tape somewhere, and I should have digitized it for today. I saw an episode of Cops back in the day. This was back in '90, where they showed the police dealing with some boneheads. I don't know who they were. It was in Portland. It showed the Portland cops basically dealing with some boneheads that was getting into some stupid row with somebody. And I was just thinking, I bet you the folks in Portland do not see the cops as the champions against fascists like that. I'm just like, something's wrong here.
They're going to defend fascism.
Yeah, and that's all I've seen since I've been going to Portland, and especially during the troubles of 2020, when they were just basically used by the feds to just try to, in many respects, spark some sort of a war between the right and the left. That's the way I saw it. That's the way I saw it.
Oh, yeah. They would let it happen. Well, they let it happen anytime if the Proud Boys of Patriot Prayer outnumbered us, the cops would let them get to us. When we outnumbered Patriot Prayer, them cops didn't let us get anywhere near them.
Yeah.
That's the difference.
Yeah,
Battle of Portland, cops let that happen.
You did mention Tiny a minute ago, didn't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, Tiny is a perfect example of how much the police will protect folks. For some reason, Tiny is Patriot Prayer / Proud Boy, and he's always getting into battles with everybody in the streets. I'm just basically telling everybody this for the sake of the podcast. He's always getting into battles. He's even when you're not actually in a rally, he's not necessarily going after Antifa. Sometimes they just go after people in the street. People have to tell we actually have to tell police you should be arresting him. And then they finally did it. They get him on. I think they put him in jail for a little bit. He gets out. He's supposed to be on parole. He violates the parole. By getting into more fights or going to rallies. People say, "Hey, you got to do something about this." They bring him. They put him in jail on a parole violation. They get him out in 2 months. 3 weeks later, he's attacking the governor's mansion in Salem, Wisconsin. By the way, he's from nearby Vancouver, Wisconsin.
Vancouver, Washington.
And the only time you really actually see him get dealt with the way he should be dealt with is when he comes after us. The last thing that we heard from Tiny was that he got shot.
Yeah.
He got shot.
Yeah, in the foot.
In the foot.
Yeah, he was chasing after somebody, and as they're running away, I believe, I don't know, something happened. They were chasing people, and he got shot in the foot, I guess. I saw the video of it. I wasn't there, so.
Now, somebody did get arrested. I mean, I this is another thing that I don't think you're expected to talk about right now. But is there any support for the person that got arrested for shooting him?
That I can't. I don't know.
Okay.
I haven't been in. I've been dealing with some family stuff recently too. So I don't know. I suspect there is. There should be. But I would have to look into that and follow up.
Okay. Have you uncovered links? Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, what I was going to say is that that is something that I think I want to try to get let people know about. If there's any way where we can help the person that is being accused of shooting Tiny, because as somebody says, there's a possibility Tiny shot himself in the foot as well. I'm not really too sure whether or not that is the case now, but regardless of how that happened, somebody is in need of some of our assistance. If Kyle Rittenhouse can get support for killing people, then this gentleman that is in jail right now for taking out somebody that should have stayed in jail his damn self. We can definitely support him. So I'm going to try to find out that information, and I will bring it up again on the next Idavox Report. I will provide that. I'll provide the information on the site. So, coming up on 15 minutes, and I know you're dealing with some nonsense yourself. I would say if what would you say pretty much, and I guess the closing of all of this, what would you want to tell everybody as they watch this, watch the documentary, as they watch
ice
the
pack still over there?
Whether or not there are ice packs that are still in existence somewhere. I'm fucking with Brian. No, I was gonna ask, what do you want?
I thought I was muted. I'm not.
You're not.
What's that?
I was asking, what is it that you want? I asked this initially, but as they're watching the documentary, what is it that you want people to look out for? What is it that you want people? I mean, I know I said this in the very beginning, but it's kind of like there's a lot to learn from this documentary. I honestly think that this is the first time that there was an actual documentary about anti-racist skins. I hate to put it in that term because I know when I say skin, when I refer to anti-racist skin, that's kind of like a you basically just repeating yourself, you know.
Yeah, I mean, there was the one about the roots of skinhead. That what's his name? Something Letts or something. Don Letts, I think, did.
Oh yeah, let me clarify. I meant to say
good,
American.
And that was British and the origins of skinhead. And then there was that one was more of a reggae thing, and they just kind of touched on the skinheads, the story of a rude boy, Trojan Records. And then this is the first one specifically anti-racist that I know about.
Yeah, because this is the very first time we dealt with I mean, like you said, a lot of the documentaries that we've seen about skinhead culture, anti-racist skinhead culture, comes from France. There's a real good one from France. Comes from the UK. This is the first time I've ever seen one coming from America. This is the very first time I've ever seen come out of America. And I like what Punks for Progress is saying about Don Letts' skinhead documentary, because that really gets into the history. That really gets into the history of skinhead culture. And Fighting Talk with Mency is really good. He's right. Mency, by the way, is the good grief. My head's gone. Mency oppressed, damn it. Brain fart. Sorry.
Oh,
but yeah, Mency.
Roddy Moreno?
Not Roddy Moreno. Mency is, damn it. What the hell was this group?
Oh,
I don't want to say Red Alert. Help me, Punks for Progress. I'm dying. Oh, damn it. It begins with an A. Angelic Upstarts. That's it. Fucking
oh, yeah. Angelic Upstarts.
Talk about a brain fart. Yeah. All of those are good. I remember and there's also books that you can check out, but really it was this is the first time really that we actually saw something in regards to the skinhead culture here in America. I mean, the closest thing to it was a news report that was done in the 80s, but that really wasn't about anti-racist skin. But but we needed to see this. One of the mistakes that has been made over the past 30 years is the fact that every time they would do something about racism, a documentary like this, they only go to the Nazis to talk about how they feel. They never really talk to us.
Right.
We're making up for
they
lost
didn't.
time.
Not sensational enough, I guess. I don't know. Yeah.
We didn't kill enough people. I don't know. So, but in any case, I know that you're caught up in something. I really want to thank you for coming out and being on this. You know, we've been trying to put this together for the past couple of weeks now, and I'm glad you was able to take some time out, even though I know you're busy as shit right now.
Right.
And we got to do this again. As a matter of fact, when I come back out to Portland again, I want to do a show with some folks out there who could talk about how things have been going. Hopefully, Portland won't be on fire when I get back out there again.
Yeah.
So
every time you come here, it's getting a little crazy.
Well, I think it's. I mean,
for sure.
Well, there was the one time that it wasn't completely crazy was when I was there for the Rock Against Fascism show. When I was there for the RAF show, it was pretty. Yeah, it was a chance for all of us to just come together and just enjoy each other's company. And by the way, folks, we got to do more shows like that all over the country. I was really inspired by what Portland was doing, and it reminded me of an effort that was being that Black Flags Over Brooklyn, show that me and Brian went to a couple of years ago. It was out of sight, and we got to start doing more shows like that. We will do more shows like that. And And we need to do them just because whenever things go down like they do in Portland, we're in tune with each other. We understand where each other is coming from when we get a chance to enjoy each other's company.
Exactly.
So, Tom, I want to thank you a lot, very much, for being here today. And I'll be in touch with you soon. And if you ever want to come back on again, the studio's yours.
All righty, buddy.
All right. Thanks a lot, man.
Later.
Take care of yourself. All right. Peace.
Yep.
And that was
Thank you very much, Tom. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you.
Stay safe.
All right. So that was Portland Tom from the documentary The Baldies. He, like you said, he's only in it for just a couple minutes. He had
but he's in a crucial part of the film, right?
Yes,
it's I mean, and like I don't want to interject, but it is a crucial part of the film. But what he said earlier about people coming to him saying that it could have been longer, it could have been a lot longer, right? Because 3/4 of the film is spent in Minneapolis, and then by the time Tom gets in, they're already almost done with the movie. But it is a crucial part of the film. What I would like to have asked him was how many minds he changed through ass whooping, because I'm sure there's a couple people at some punk shows that got a couple ass whoopings that decided they wanted to think differently about white supremacy. But I wanted to know if he had an actual number of white supremacists he was able to run off and or save through the power of ass whooping.
I mean, there's some stories. I mean, I can honestly, I think I actually have a few answers where he tried.
Oh yeah,
because me and Tom spoken about this in the past. I don't want to drop any names or anything like that.
That's fine.
But the truth of the matter is, it isn't all swinging. Sometimes he'll come to you even after he was swinging on you to just say, "Hey, look, man, yo, why are you fucking your life up like this?" Because remember, this is one of the things I was getting at when I was talking about how we became like these elder statesmen or just teachers. Yes, I saw that too. And it was because I know that he has been about trying to get young folks to understand being a Nazi isn't the way to go, and B, being anti-fascist is.
Yeah.
But I should have kept him on and asked him about all that. But that's all.
Yeah, we'll bring him back. We'll bring him back
again and talk about. I mean, his life is about.
I think the ass whooping, the ass whooping, probably has to lead to a conversation with somebody close to that person. So, like, if you could imagine some douchebag coming home and say, "Dad, I got my ass whooped for being a Nazi at a punk show." And he probably didn't learn anything until his dad said, "Well, you deserve to get your ass whooped for being a Nazi at the punk show." Or a friend or somebody, has a conversation with them about, why they deserve to get their ass kicked at the punk show. And that's what kind of changed hearts and minds, I think usually. That's why it's important, if you know somebody going down that road, to try to reach out to them and be a lifeline, if you can. And that's something generally, we white people got to do.
So
Daryl's just an amazing guy. I know he does it, and he's taught me a little bit about it. It takes a special kind of person, I can tell you that, to be able to do outreach to these people and actually get through.
The feeling is,
it's basically like being brainwashed into a conspiracy theory.
Well, it's important to note that, as I always try to tell people, I kind of like go along the lines of my father when he's trying to help people get off of drugs and stuff like that. He's not going to chase you down. He's gonna wait until after you hit rock bottom and you end up in his facility.
Yeah.
That he just says, "Okay, you want help? I'll give you help."
You have to want to
be
change.
real about it.
You have to want to change. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the difference between my father and me is the fact that I don't have to necessarily be a hard ass about it. I mean, I'm going to be firm. I mean, you're coming to me not being a Nazi. I want to say, okay, cool. You're coming to me trying to be a human being. That's how I'm going to approach this. and we just take it from there. Incidentally, we're talking about Netflix miniseries. I should point out that I have been over the past couple of weeks working with somebody who's going to be doing a miniseries about me. This is the thing that Chadwick Boseman actually signed on to before he passed away. And so we're working on that right now. And a lot of my story involves mixing it up with a lot of folks not too far away from where I'm at right now. Actually, over here at the Court Tavern, we got into some battles. And Court Tavern is a club here in New Brunswick, New Jersey, and or was, it's not open anymore. So I mean, the real is, if you're not going to change, we most certainly are not going to change, which means you're getting your ass whooped. But if you're ready to come with it and try to just basically get out of all of this BS, then yeah, we're going to be there. Yeah. We're also going to encourage you.
In the documentary, and I forget the guy's name, I mean, they tell the story of a kid. I mean, he's a teenager, and that's what they do. They prey on teenagers. They prey on young men. And he said he was hanging out with the white supremacists because they were giving him beer, and they gave him a place to hang out. And I think he was confronted by that Mike Crenshaw guy, and they were like, look, you need to not live this life. And then he said, yeah, that was it. He said 1 or 2 conversations, and he stopped hanging out with those people, and then he became a Baldy, and he was about that life.
Yeah.
And they prey on these kids that are insecure, and they teach them to hate. And interestingly, that's the same thing that ISIS does. That's the same thing Al-Qaeda does. It's the same thing all terrorist groups do. They prey on people, and they warp their minds into conspiracy theories.
And I think, honestly, I was saying earlier about how, just a couple minutes ago, about how I don't chase them down. I think it's time that that One People's Project tries to put something together, put some sort of a program together in which we can, in fact, be there for when they feel it's time for them to give the crap up. I have been asked to do that in the past, and my feeling has always been, you brought up ISIS, you brought up Al-Qaeda, and I'll throw gangbangers in there too. If I were to put something to get like that together, it would have to include everybody. It can't just be the WPs. It would have to be every element every element that reaches out to vulnerable kids, vulnerable people, and tries to shape them into something that they really shouldn't be. Yeah. So I'm going to work on that. It's going to take some grants and stuff. There's a lot of stuff that I want to do in the future, since everybody's looking at me now.
Everybody's looking at you, Daryle. Make the most of it. Might as well.
Yeah,
really quick.
Yeah.
Well, I was going to say, just to talk about music, Daryle, what are some other really good anti-racist bands that we can listen to, that we can tell people about? Punks for Progress, if you want to jump in and give us some bands, because I'm not a punk guy, right? I'm a metal guy. When I listen to like the punk, it's like that post-punk stuff. It's the more hardcore stuff. It's the more metalcore stuff. I'm a generation younger than you. Right. And even in the documentary, they take a dig at like metal music. They're like, they're a bunch of meathead metal guys. But, I'm a metal guy. So what are some really good anti-racist punk bands, hardcore bands that people should be listening to, that we should be checking out?
I mean, it was funny that he brought up Coxbar, because Coxbar isn't necessarily an anti-racist band.
Yeah, he just likes the band.
Not really racist either.
Yeah.
I would say, we mentioned The Oppressed, we mentioned Angelic Upstarts, especially Angelic Upstarts. Look up my boy Mency. He will lead you on the straight and narrow. I don't know. I would probably say maybe Red Alert. These are Oi bands, by the way.
Okay.
And Oi is basically skinhead music. In regards to punks, damn near everybody. Reagan Youth, I wouldn't say everybody. I know better than that. Violent Society, I gotta give props out to Violent Society out of Philly. Although there is Battalion Zoska that's out there right now. That's formed out of the ashes of Violent Society. Let me see what else. Total mass. Okay. Oh yeah, I said Reagan Youth, but yeah, Oi Polloi, Moscow Death Brigade, Guillotine Truck, MDC. MDC stands for Millions of Dead Cops. So
Thanks for progress.
Total
Jumping
Massacre. I don't know Total Massacre as well, though. I'm not really up on Total Massacre. So, but yeah, Oi Boy. Wow. Why didn't
Rage Against the Machine? Thank you, Jamie. That's the band that influenced me was Rage Against the Machine. I mean, they're punk influenced. I wouldn't call them a punk band. I'd call them just a mixed band. But Rage Against the Machine is my favorite band of all time. But they're not necessarily punk, even though you could listen to a song like "Tire Me." That's very much a punk song. Boy Sets Fire is actually a really good band.
Boy Sets Fire is out of sight.
They're not punk, but they're awesome. And my boy, who was on a couple episodes of Revolution Radio, Flavio Hickel, Dr. Flavio Hickel, is in their documentary In the Pit as people are throwing down. He's there in the pit. You can see him in the video. It's pretty cool. I love it.
And if you mentioned Rage, I knew Rage was going to come up. We have to.
I got to mention Rage.
I got to mention Downset.
Downset. What about Inside Out? Zach's first band.
They came out of the same. Well, folks from Rage Against the Machine were in Inside Out.
Yeah,
but
that was that.
Downset was a band that basically them and Rage Against the Machine came out of the same scene, same style, but no one knows Downset all that well. Check out Downset. Look up.
I was listening to them.
I even brought them up in the past episode.
Yeah, Brian
I brought up the song Anger, Hostility Towards the Opposition. So check them out on YouTube when you we're done here today. Because I swore I probably could have brought them up. We're at 9:02 right now, so we're gonna have to give it a night. But I'm glad you reminded me. If we're going to talk about bands that we need to check out, at some point we're going to get my boy Not For Profit on this.
Reconstruction.
We cannot leave out Reconstruction in that list.
Love that band.
And while we're at it, since I saw the Big Daddy Kane KRS One versus, do not leave hip hop out of this mix here. Public Enemy, Ice-T, Boogie Down Productions,
Body Count,
Tribe Called Quest,
KRS One.
Yeah, I mean, well, I said Boogie Down Production.
Yeah.
So you can't leave them out of this. You can't leave them out. Shoot, Consolidated.
Musical
genres.
Oh man, here we go.
Ministry did a song. Ministry actually did a song about Antifa. They were so they're that kind of a band too. I mean, wasn't really big on it, but
Ministry, like industrial ministry from back in the day.
Yes,
recently within the last 2 or 3 years. Yeah.
Okay, I never really listened to Ministry.
Yeah. So I mean, these are names that people will probably know, but there's a lot of bands out there. And if
the song is called Antifa, the name of the song is Antifa.
Yeah, that's what I said. It was Antifa. What's the name? Strike Anywhere. Strike Anywhere. We got some Strike Anywhere out of Richmond. You got to show love to them. They were a good band to check out. But anyway, it's 9:04 now. And we can run down music.
It's the music talk. We do it every time.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we're going.
Can I get in my plug before we go? Can I get in my plug, please?
Do it to it.
Yeah. Look out. I'm going to be recording a special with our friend Herb Tarvis out of New Jersey on the gubernatorial debate there. We have Phil Murphy, who is the king of AstroTurf, and who has put together one of the most elaborate fake-ass grassroots networks you've ever seen. It's really impressive how much fucking bullshit $14 million can buy. But we'll tell you, he's running against a guy who tried to stop cursing in his town when he was mayor, Jack Citarelli, who, yes, made an attempt at finding people. He made an attempt at finding people.
I don't know. He's a Trumper.
Yes.
Hold up. I gotta check this out.
He was the mayor of Raritan, and it was about 25 years ago, and he tried to pass an ordinance which said that you could not use foul language within the borough limits. And,
FTP.
made national news.
That shit
and
ended up
embarrassing.
on MTV.
Pendejo.
We got on MTV.
So for those, so really quick.
Oh
those
yeah,
of us out there not in
his
New Jersey,
campaign is this.
His campaign is literally just
It's
whining
a
about
three-ring
taxes,
circus.
and then he doesn't talk about anything. All he says and I'm blowing like on Hulu, his stupid and YouTube, his stupid commercials. It's all Phil Murphy's lying about me, but I'm not going to say about what. Let me whine about taxes because that's all Republicans whine about in New Jersey. And then he literally doesn't say anything in any of his commercials. He doesn't come out. And then everybody finds out he's, anti-abortion. He's like this really right-wing extremist anti-abortion. He was trying to push that nonsense that Trump said about kids not being able to get the virus. Right. I mean, the guy is an extremist and he's a jabroni.
We're gonna get
I know that now.
We're gonna get into all this with Herb on Revolution Radio special reports coming soon. So make sure you subscribe to our social medias and our podcasts.
Don't go nowhere.
All right, he said he'll be back in a minute. So really quick, I just want to say,
what's going on with you? I'll ask you. Why don't you plug so you got?
Oh,
there you go.
I was gonna say, shout out to everybody that commented today. Punks for Progress, always there to back us up. Jamie, Caitlin, thank you for showing your support, showing that love. We love it. Me myself, Brian, I'm doing okay, man. Just working. I had a cold this weekend. I got tested. It's not COVID. And, just working.
Yeah, I hear that.
He's
Getting ready for the winter up here.
Pulling out the vinyl.
All right, what's Daryle got for us, sir?
This is an anti-racist band.
I got terrible eyesight.
Oh, yeah, and I can't. Is it Janus Apatride? I'm screwing it up. As you can probably tell from the back, this is the French band. They're out of Montreal.
Okay.
They're out of Montreal, so that's a band that everybody can check out. They are good. I heard them. They're nice as hell. They're really nice. There is you know what? We're gonna get some of these bands on.
Let's do it.
Why not? Why don't we just show them Los Crudos? I just saw
Los
that.
Crudos. That's old school, dude.
Yes, indeed.
I got some OGs in my life talking about Los Crudos.
That I even had here. Damn it. Who was the band? Fuck. Out of Pittsburgh.
Sorry, brother. But my goddaughter's mother, when she was a teenager, she was into Los Crudos. Now she's a school teacher whose daughters ride horses. But back in the day, she said she would get in fights at Los Crudos show. And they were like, "You're a crazy white girl." And she's like, "Yeah."
Rotten. That's the band I'm thinking of. Rotten. Okay, we're going to go crazy trying.
We got to go.
Now, that's a hell of a band, by the way. Rotten. Rotten is nice. The Prophets out of Boston. The Prophets. By all means, let me get out of here before I start coming up with more bands. Listen, people, we love you, and we want to see you next week. I'm getting a damn band on next week. Screw this. I'm gonna see if we can get a band on next week. But anyway, I want to thank Brian, Christian, Tom. Yo, thank you for being on the show. It is now 9:09, and we got to get out of here. So, everybody, if you want to try to get a hold of me, if you want to try to, definitely get us Dave Dichter. Oh man, yes, let's talk Punks for Progress. We got to have him on the show. Let's see if we can get him on the show next week. We're gonna have some fun. All right, let me stop. Let me get going. Okay, basically, if y'all trying to get if y'all want to get a hold of me, you can, or One People's Project in general, just go to onepeoplesproject.com. You can also go to idavox.com. If you're trying to support us, people, we need your support. We really do need your support so we can just keep these shows going and to keep the lights on in here, keep us in here. So if you can, hit that donate button when you go over to One People's Project. By all means, we can use your help. But you can also hit us up on, you can also buy shirts there. We got merch. We got lots of merch over there. So you can also hit us up on Facebook. Yeah, just look for One People's Project. We're there. I can't remember the damn URL. You can also hit us up on Twitter. One People's Proj, PROJ. We couldn't fit the ECT in there. So you can find us there at One People's Proj, at Idavox OPP, at D Lamont Jenkins, which, by the way, is also where you can find me on Instagram. And I'm on TikTok, but I don't do shit on TikTok. So go check us out anyway. All right, ladies and gentlemen, glad to see you. Well, I can't see you, but and much love to Revolution Radio. And we will talk to y'all next week. Peace.